Hello and welcome to today's video. Today, we're here for another episode of the Racing Debrief. We're switching it up. We got another new recording location. No, I didn't do the Racing Debrief last night. I'm behind on that. Of course, this is where we talk about the most recent racing from the weekend. So Racing Debrief definitely got shaken up. Normally, this is a series that goes out on Monday, but, we had rain in Daytona, and the Xfinity race didn't end until about 12, and I didn't really feel like recording and then going right to bed because I had to work at 10 in the morning, so didn't want to do that. So here we are, my lunch break. Might as well dive into it. What do we start with? So we'll start with the racing on actually we can go through the whole weekend because NASCAR actually had a weekend to debrief. Normally there's only your race, a little bit of qualifying, but of course qualifying Daytona 500 a little bit more in depth with that due to the fact that it is Daytona 500. It's not a random race. So the thing leading in, of course, will Hendrick get another pole? They didn't, obviously. We've seen Joe Logano and Michael McDowell get the front row in that, so definitely interesting there. Of course, the new Ford front end, see how that would go. And it turned out to do pretty well in single speed. Daytona was not nice to the Toyotas in their single run. They were all pretty far down. I think the furthest up Toyota was like 20 seconds. So qualifying didn't go well for them. Duels, though, Toyotas really showed that they could run well, move their way up to the front. And that open spot, of course, first duel, Jimmy Johnson, J.J. Yeley, that was super exciting to watch that. So definitely enjoyed that little battle between the two of them. So Jimmy Johnson barely made it in there. Second duel, a little bit more chaotic racing-wise. You had a big crash towards the end of it. Ryan Blaney with a massive hit. What was he at, like 55G or something impact? That's wild. So, really shows the safety of the cars. You can take that impact and hop out. So, that's, that's part of that from the duels. You had Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell win those. So, we go into Friday, and I was a little bit behind on the truck race because it was my birthday on Friday, so I was out doing stuff. So I came home probably about 9, so I was able to fast forward through most of it. When there was a lot of cautions, and there was, because the trucks are an absolute mess. I will be honest, I don't necessarily remember every incident from the truck race, just because, again, the way the Racing Debrief works is we recap the whole weekend. But here we are on Tuesday trying to recap something from last Friday. There's been a lot between that time. So, who was it? Nick Sanchez won? So, cool to see him win. Of course, he came close a few times last year to winning, but the trucks in general, just an absolute mess. We've kind of seen the trucks become just a bunch of 18-year-old rich kids crashing each other. So I think it's just became more and more of that as time's gone on, because just more of the veteran presence that they might have had in that series is, further and further away. I think Bubba Wallace had a good post about that on Twitter, saying how, you don't have these drivers from the Cup Series dropping down and helping in that regard to, these younger drivers that don't have a veteran presence to come and say something. So when you limit the Cup drivers so severely, you look at that and it does impact the series because you don't have that Cup presence to go up against. And that's really kind of an effect that I think wasn't thought about. I definitely didn't think that. I was definitely on the thought process of having less Cup guys was good. but I think now maybe we got to consider reversing that a little bit, just because the things we've seen in the trucks, especially the last 2 races, Phoenix last year for the championship and the first race at Daytona, it's looked pretty bad. I'm going to be honest. It's looked pretty trash. It's pretty trash to watch, to be fair. I think that the trucks are just more obnoxious, and I feel like as a team owner, why would you want to put effort into that? And as a sponsor, why would you want to put time into that? Like, why would you put money and effort into that if you're just going to crash up? It's going to cost more money in the long run for that. So I think the trucks are in an interesting spot for sure, and I think that just seeing how things went at Daytona, I think it just adds to that, right? It adds to the, what are we doing here, right? What is the point in this? World's going to crash. Like, it's just become a wreck fest. And I think is one of the top 3 NASCAR levels, one of the highest levels of racing in America. I think that it's got to be better, right? If we're at NASCAR is the peak and you're 2 levels below Cup Series is just guys crashing each other, I feel like you can't have that. Speaking of guys crashing each other below in lower levels, the ARCA race followed it, and that was even worse. I'd only watched one ARCA race before the Truck Series race, and that was Bristol in 2019. So it hasn't been something I really watched, but bruh, everybody crashing each other. I mean, the guy that won the race crashed his teammate in the first 6 laps, crashed the field, and then said, yeah, we're going to work together as teammates in the last restart, and just left his teammate at the top, won the race himself. I mean, that's kind of a trash move. I'm going to be honest with that. I mean, go for the win, 100%. I think that's, you have the right to do that. But I think when you say, as a teammate, we're going to work together, right? And your teammate picks the high side. They go high, or they can cut it in front of you on the restart. And then you say, yeah, we're going to do that. And then go against that. I think that's pretty trash. That was a terrible move. So the ARCA race was completely obnoxious. And I really didn't enjoy watching it, to be fair. And I think it goes back to what we were saying about the trucks, how it's just a bunch of rich kids crashing each other. That's even more severe in ARCA because they're just less talented. And I know there's been a lot of posts like saying, we should give more credit to the Cup drivers for the way that they race. Because, you look at the Cup race and you had, 4 cautions? And then the race had 5 total and 3 that were wrecks. Like, I think that's what we're looking at, right? So 3 cautions, 2 stages, right? 5 total cautions in that race. Trucks had 12. And again, you take out the stages, 11-3. Or 10-3. Like, 7 more in a way shorter race. Trucks was 100 laps maybe? They might have been 100 laps, and Cup was 200. So double the laps, and you had more cautions. So I just think that's quite ridiculous to watch and see. So when it comes to where you go from there in those series of the crashes, I think that having more veteran presence is important. How do you get that back? I don't know. So we'll go to the Cup race. So we'll go in order for races. Again, normally we talk about Cup last, but talk about the Cup race. Daytona 500. I thought it was a pretty good race. You had a lot of passing, a lot of action throughout the field, a lot of cars moving through with some green flag pit stops. We have a few incidents. Of course, the first one was Harrison Burton with Carson Hocevar. A little bit of a bump from Brad Keselowski into John Hunter Nemechek, sent Nemechek down a little bit. Hit Harrison Burton, got Carson Hocevar in it. I believe Austin Dillon and Jimmy Johnson were also involved in that one. So those guys were kind of crashed out or damaged early. But then we move on to, going through the race. Stage 1, Chase Elliott got that. Stage 2, I believe, was completely caution-free. Again, run the laps. It felt like a quick race. Again, running through the field, passing. Good overall. And again, this was, 4 o'clock on Monday, so we had that shift between a day race to a night race, which is always cool. Of course, Daytona 500 would have not really shifted to a night race because it would have started about 2:30. So maybe would have shifted to slightly, but you had a lot more of that because it ended at 8. So yeah, probably would have been close to darkness anyways, but you had a little bit more of that because it was going later. So you really had to run about half the race in the dark, or night. I shouldn't say dark, it's a whole lit track. But yeah, I think that had an element to it. Of course, seeing that transition between the two, always cool to see. And then you go to the last stage, and again, they're running around, not much happening, besides accident-wise. A lot happening strategy-wise, passing-wise, guys moving through the field. And you get to the end, I believe it was, 8 laps to go. William Byron gets a bump from Alex Bowman. That hits Byron into Keselowski, into the wall. Keselowski hits into Logano. Whole field behind crashes. Ross Chastain makes it through by that much from getting hit by Keselowski. And then from there, it's just everybody in a pile. You had William Byron, Alex Bowman, they got through it again. They set it off and they get through it, so that's kind of whack. But they made it through. Chase Elliott somehow got through. I have no idea. He was an inch from getting hit every direction and somehow made it through. But both those guys made it through. Again, Bowman, Byron made it through. Chastain made it through. So it goes with a big crash, a lot of hard hits. Red flag for a little bit to clean up because, again, it was just a pile in turn 3. And, you go from there, have a restart. Ross Chastain gets the lead. And again, it looked like the Hendrick cars were going to be in a good spot because you had Bowman, Byron, and Chase Elliott all basically lined up. Chase Elliott fell back a little bit. Bowman and Byron, they were still up there going. Coming towards the white flag, that's when the controversy of the race happens. Corey LaJoie, Austin Cindric makes some contact, and Ross Chastain makes a move kind of between them. And you have Cindric and Chastain make contact. They go spinning. Clearly there's going to be a caution. NASCAR waits till after the white flag to press the button for the caution, which they've done many other times that they have. They've been ready, called the caution immediately. But they waited because they wanted to see if the crash was going to happen or something. Felt like a kind of dumb excuse for not throwing the caution, to be fair. To say, we wanted to see what's going to happen when there's 2 cars spinning through the grass, where the start-finish line is. But after it's been wet, where you could have a car get stuck. But that was their reasoning. They said, we want to wait. Cindric comes back up into the field, and that's when they throw the caution. Of course, you get Bowman or Byron who wins it. It looks like on the camera Bowman wins it. They said Byron did because they put a picture out on social media that was look at this is the picture that we went by. It would have been nice to show it on the broadcast instead of posting it an hour later. But William Byron wins and the crowd goes mid, I guess. I mean, it's William Byron, okay. Sure. Kind of whatever on that one. Yeah, that's that. So, Xfinity race, last race of the weekend. So, this race got moved a few times. Of course, it was supposed to be on Saturday. Got rained out. They moved it to Monday at 11 a.m. But it was still raining a little bit, and they wanted to dry the track and, get everything done with that. So, they moved it to 9 p.m. after the Cup race. Some people were saying, why didn't they move the 500 up or have the 500 at, later at night, have it in a primetime slot. But Daytona 500 is on Fox, so they have more things that are scheduled on Fox that they don't want to move around or can't move around. So that's kind of the slot they had for the 500 and had to put it in that. Compared to on FS1, they can move a little bit more of that stuff a little easier than the main Fox channel. So I think that's really why you ended up with things the way that they were. So Xfinity race, first stage was some guy in the 2 car. I forgot his name. It's from Arca last year. There was a rig, I don't remember. Either way, he won the first stage, and then immediately crashed in the second stage when they kind of had one of their first big crashes. I felt like Xfinity wasn't as bad for crashes as trucks, but could have been a little bit better. But Austin Hills kind of dominated that race. He kept getting to the front. Andy Petrie's going wild in the booth because he's a RCR guy, and I felt like he was definitely participating in hyping up Austin Hill a lot. I know a lot of people thought that. And don't get me wrong, Andy Petrie I think is great at commentary. I think when he was on ESPN years ago, he did great. But I think when you put him in that spot where it's a one-off thing, you got to hype up your drivers. Because I feel like a lot of the times the people that do have connections, whether they're a team owner or high up in the organization, a lot of them do well at putting their, obvious bias they would have towards their team aside. I think that when Dale Jr. does his commentary, he's not really putting that bias specifically, Junior Motorsports cars. And I think what Tony Stewart did commentary the last 2 years for Fox in a few races, I feel like he wasn't as hyping up his drivers for Stewart-Haas the whole time. And I feel like even Jeff Gordon didn't necessarily do as much with the 100 drivers. He definitely had a little bit more, but I feel like he wasn't just sitting there talking about the 100 drivers the whole time. But definitely there was a vibe of that from Andy Petrie where he was definitely giving a lot of specific conversations towards the RCR guys. So kind of lame on that front. But Austin Hill just was inevitable in that race, and it kind of was just like, why'd I stay up for that? It was impressive. He went to the field. The late caution on the back straight definitely felt like it hurt the finish. I think Sheldon Creed could have maybe had something for him, but he kind of backed off thinking there was a caution, because normally they throw a caution immediately, and that one they didn't. So overall, yeah, I don't know. It was a weekend. It definitely is one of those race weekends that didn't stand out for me, to be fair. Again, I thought the 500 was solid, but to end it the way they ended it, a bit disappointing. Again, I don't want to see 15 overtimes, but I also want to see the race to the finish if we can. And if you can finish under green, let's do that. And I think when something like that situation arises, I think you can finish under green. So overall, I just think it wasn't a great weekend. I just think it was what it was. And I'm looking forward to Atlanta. I can't really say that I'm like super excited for Atlanta, to be honest. It's definitely a weird feeling. But I don't know. The way the season started out is kind of just like, it's there, to be fair. Yeah, I don't know why. It's very weird, but I think to just watch Trucks, ARCA, Cup, Xfinity, and to have, two of those races just be complete wreck fests, one of them be relatively wreck fest, and one of them have slightly controversial ending to it. I felt like, damn, this weekend could have been so much better than it was. But, I guess that happens sometimes. So, that is that. Hope you guys enjoyed the racing debrief. A little bit late, and also in my car, my break at work. I only got to work for like another hour, but I don't want to take a break and then have to go back in for 5 hours. So I was like, I'll record and then, go home. Do I really want to go home, record, and then be ready to be back at work for 10 tomorrow morning? Probably not. So I feel like we're sitting here, might as well get this video done. So hope you guys enjoyed our next recording location. We'll add that to the list for racing debrief locations. We had my room, had my recording set up in the basement, had my brother's apartment, and now we're here. So, in my car. 4 places for the racing debrief. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll be on the normal day, normal scheduled time of 10 a.m. on Monday. But you never know. Could always rain in Atlanta and ruin our plans again. But either way, thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in the next one.